There has been no shortage of controversy surrounding the Lightfall expansion. Hotly debated topics regarding the story, the content, the difficulty of that content being either too hard or too easy, and some of the best quality of life changes for some have been seen as a regression for others. Lightfall may be the most divisive expansion for Destiny 2 yet. And I gotta say, I'm actually really enjoying it. Surprising, I know, but I am. That said, I still would not recommend it to new players or most returning players because for $50, the value is... and some of the content is borderline
dog shit.
But one of the most interesting things about Lightfall isn't even the content itself. It's the conspiracy theories about the content. Theory 1, Root of Nightmares was originally a dungeon that Bungie reworked into a raid. The theory goes that the first, second, and fourth encounters were supposed to be a Nezarec-themed dungeon, while the third encounter was pulled from the original Lightfall raid to extend the length for Root of Nightmares. These three encounters share the same aesthetic of the newly terraformed ship, and the mechanics are mostly the same. The main node mechanic is designed in such a way that it allows for one person to do it, while everyone else is just on ad clear, similar to the way dungeon mechanics can be done solo if need be. Whereas the third encounter is inside a very different room, doesn't feature node mechanics, and moving planets has nothing to do with the rest of the raid. It sticks out like a sore thumb. But a thumb, players seem to agree is the best encounter in the raid, and is the only encounter that requires a lot of real teamwork. So, a 3-encounter dungeon, pad it out with an encounter cut from the next raid, throw in a couple jumping puzzles, and boom, new raid. The final thing Bungie needed to add was a wipe mechanic, which does feel a bit tacked on as it can basically be ignored due to its somewhat poor implementation. Now you pair this theory with the highest day 1 clears in Destiny history, number of encounters soloed and low-manned, and even flawless while contest mode was active, this theory becomes somewhat believable. But what do you guys think? Does this theory hold any weight? Was Root of Nightmares an amalgamation of dungeon and raid assets? Theory 2. Strand was meant for the Witch Queen, not Lightfall. Narratively, Witch Queen's story dealt with a lot of threading and unraveling of psychic energy, with plenty of imagery to go along with that concept. Throughout the Witch Queen campaign, we are introduced to the Deep Sight mechanic, which reveals platforms that allow us to reach areas we could not without the platforms. Something that felt a bit more suited for Strand traversal, rather than this sort of random hidden path mechanic. And Strand's design feels ripe for Witch Queen, from the threads, to the color, to even the logo matching the armor sets. The list goes on and on. But as plans began to change behind the scenes of development, sometime in 2020, Bungie extended the finale into another year with the announcement of the final shape. Strand would then be delayed from Witch Queen in order to make room for 3.0 subclass reworks instead, and Strand would become a large focus for the now filler DLC, Lightfall. Which, yes, is Theory 3. Lightfall as a whole is a filler DLC cobbled together with content that was cut from the Witch Queen and content meant for the original Lightfall, which became Final Shape. This is the main theory believed by most, and what a lot of players use to make sense of the disappointment with Lightfall's content. For one, the story. Lightfall's story was advertised as a big progressive step in the Light and Dark saga, filled with many answers to long-time questions, a large focus on our biggest rival, the Witness, and an epic loss of light, hence the name Lightfall. But instead, we saw a bulk of the story revolve around Strand and training like Rocky with Osiris on how to harness its power. We would chase around a MacGuffin on a new destination with irrelevant characters, and there was no payoff for our questions or any real story progression. The first cutscene and the final cutscene was split in half, and a rushed expansion was made to fit in between. The new strike? Assets from Season of the Splicer. The bulk of the post-campaign content? Same thing. 90% of the weapons? Reskins. Neomuna? Make it Europa Part 2. It's not hard to see why this theory has become the most common line of thinking, but the theory that takes the most time to unravel is what happens after the final shape. Thankfully, I've got a video going into that theory in depth,